Anonymism, that's an ideology I had created. It's just accepting the fact that you don't know everything, and then we just don't go by no rules. Like, I just
Most drill rappers talk about demons, but what if I told you that some of the most feared killers in the streets actually believe in God? Imagine Bloodhound Lil Jeff, proudly sporting a Jesus piece around his neck despite being tied to 11 homicides. And he's not alone. There are others just like him, fierce shooters who still bow their heads in prayer before heading out on missions. It's a side of drill culture you don't see often, a world where faith and violence coexist in a startling, paradoxical way. Drill music thrives on a raw blend of violence, revenge, and unyielding street codes. Yet beneath the chaos, many of these artists hold on to threads of faith. Some claim to engage in voodoo rituals, blending spiritual practices with the brutal realities of the streets. Others intertwine Islam into their daily lives while remaining deeply entrenched in street conflicts. A few even seek redemption after committing shocking acts of violence. We're diving into the untold truths behind these rappers and their spiritual paths, and I promise, the reality is more surprising than you'd imagine. Take Fulio, one of Jacksonville's most infamous drill rappers. His life has been a whirlwind of losses, gun violence, and relentless street drama. But beneath the headlines and the hard-hitting diss tracks, Fulio has opened up about his connection to God. He has described spiritual experiences that, while unexpected, reveal the depth of his beliefs. At the same time, Fulio acknowledges a link to voodoo, a rich cultural and religious practice that's deeply rooted in Haitian and Southern traditions, especially in Florida. He has spoken about undergoing spiritual cleansings and participating in rituals that reflect the influence of Haitian culture. In his own words, Fulio says, "I believe in God," but he also admits familiarity with these ancient traditions. The intersection of these spiritual paths and the relentless world of drill paints a more complex picture than the one you'd expect from just the music or the headlines. This intertwining of faith and street life is nothing new among drill rappers. For many, spiritual practices serve as both armor and compass, a way to shield themselves from enemies and navigate the unforgiving realities of the streets. Fulio is no exception. In a revealing interview, he shared that voodoo was deeply rooted in his upbringing. His grandmother practiced it, and in Florida's rich cultural melting pot, voodoo is more than a tradition, it's a legacy. The influence of Haitian and Creole heritage runs strong, and for Fulio, it's been a guiding force throughout his turbulent life. When asked directly about his personal encounters with voodoo, Fulio was careful not to reveal too much. Still, he hinted at rituals and spiritual acts that go far beyond what most people could comprehend. One of the most striking examples he mentioned involved spending multiple nights in a graveyard, anywhere from 3 to 7 days. This extreme practice, according to him, is thought to forge a connection with the dead, enhance supernatural strength, and provide spiritual protection against life's relentless threats. Despite his openness about certain aspects of his background, Fulio held back when it came to describing the full scope of his voodoo experiences. "That's some stuff you just gotta come to Florida and experience for yourself," he said, underscoring the mystery and secrecy that often shroud these traditions. This reluctance to divulge every detail isn't unusual. In the world of voodoo, the line between the sacred and the secret is tightly guarded, adding to its mystique and its significance in the lives of those who practice it. Many practitioners believe that discussing voodoo rituals openly can diminish their power or even invite unintended spiritual consequences. Despite his willingness to acknowledge voodoo's influence, Fulio remains grounded in his belief in God. When asked if he considers himself spiritual, his response was straightforward: "Yeah, I believe in God." For Fulio, his connection to faith and spirituality seems to be less about seeking redemption and more about surviving the constant dangers of the streets. Jacksonville's rap scene is one of the most perilous in the country, with artists navigating deadly rivalries and unrelenting violence. Many rappers know that physical weapons, no matter how reliable, aren't always enough. Fulio's embrace of spiritual practices, whether through prayer or voodoo rituals, could be seen as an extra layer of defense, something intangible but powerful, going beyond guns, security details, or bulletproof gear. He even addressed the topic directly in his 2018 track Voodoo, reflecting his awareness of the supernatural's influence on his life and choices. Over the years, Fulio has suffered devastating losses. Friends and allies have fallen in the brutal, ongoing conflict that defines Jacksonville's streets. This harsh reality makes him a vivid example of the precarious balance between faith and street life. His story illustrates how spirituality and survival often intertwine in unexpected and complicated ways, offering a sense of hope or protection where conventional methods fall short. Just as Fulio finds his own way through spirituality, another influential figure in the drill world, Lil Durk, maintains a deeply personal connection to his Islamic faith. Despite his fame, street battles, and the heartbreaking losses he's endured, his belief in Islam has remained a steadfast source of guidance and strength. The juxtaposition of these rappers' spiritual lives against the backdrop of violence offers a compelling look into the hidden layers of drill culture. Durk has always maintained that his relationship with Islam is a personal journey rather than a public display. He's spoken openly about the importance of practicing his deen, Islamic faith and duties, without turning it into a show. "I don't want to be known as Durk with 1,000 Muslims," he said. Instead, his focus is on quietly, sincerely getting closer to Allah. It's not about appearances or performing for others, it's about striving to better himself and his understanding of his faith. In the midst of a life filled with violence, betrayal, and the harsh realities of the streets, Durk's connection to Islam remains a steadying force. Despite the constant turmoil, he's found ways to let his faith guide his choices. It's not a shield or an excuse, it's a personal compass. His family played a significant role in shaping that relationship, especially his father, a respected figure who spent many years behind bars. His father often spoke about the importance of faith and viewed it as a discipline that required genuine commitment. After his release, he even expressed a desire to visit California with Durk so they could attend a mosque together and pray. For Durk's father, Islam wasn't just about identity, it was a life path. Unlike some who wear religion as a badge or a shield, Durk is candid about his ongoing spiritual growth. He readily admits he's still learning. When asked if he was raised Muslim or came to it later, he simply replied, "No." His faith isn't a justification for his past, it's a quiet reminder of who he wants to become. In contrast to Durk's spiritual journey, Sababi, a rising artist in the drill and trap scene, has taken an entirely different approach. He's one of the rare figures in this space who openly identifies as an atheist. Rejecting traditional religious frameworks, Sababi has coined his own ideology, which he calls unknownism. It's a stark departure from the spiritual paths embraced by so many others in the scene, adding a unique layer of complexity to the ever-evolving narrative of drill culture. Despite these various approaches to spirituality, one thing remains clear. Faith, or the lack thereof, plays a significant role in the lives of many drill rappers. While figures like Fulio and Durk explore the complexities of their beliefs, others in the scene remain unapologetically secular, embracing alternative philosophies or even rejecting religion altogether. These personal belief systems often emerge as a response to the relentless challenges of street life. In a world where survival often seems to depend on luck or fate, some turn to a higher power, while others seek their own form of moral clarity outside traditional faith. For some drill rappers, the intersection of faith and music becomes a form of catharsis. Their lyrics often reflect the inner conflict between their violent environments and their spiritual aspirations. Whether referencing God, Islam, voodoo, or personal ideologies, these artists convey an ongoing struggle to reconcile their actions with their beliefs. This tension can result in deeply layered narratives that capture more than just the brutality of street life. They also reveal the search for meaning, redemption, and even forgiveness. In expanding the story, the focus could shift toward how these faith-driven conflicts influence not only the artists themselves, but also their listeners. The spiritual undertones of drill music could be examined more closely, highlighting the impact of these messages on young fans who look up to these artists. Additionally, exploring the cultural roots of these spiritual practices, be it voodoo's Haitian origins, the spread of Islam in urban communities, or the personal philosophies of figures like Zabibi, could offer a more comprehensive understanding of how these belief systems shape the genre as a whole. Building on this theme, let's delve into how these spiritual influences ripple outwards, not just shaping individual artists, but also influencing the culture of the drill community at large. For many, faith becomes a grounding force, helping them navigate the endless cycle of street feuds, losses, and pressures that define the scene. Others see it as a form of resistance, a way to assert an identity beyond violence, showing that even in the harshest environments, there's room for spiritual exploration and growth. One emerging trend among some drill rappers is the blending of religious practices with personal codes of honor. Some artists speak of praying before making life-altering decisions, seeking guidance from a higher power to justify or process their actions. These prayers don't necessarily absolve them of their choices, but they reveal a deeper struggle, a desire to find clarity, meaning, or even justification in a world that often feels chaotic and lawless. This duality of being both deeply spiritual and deeply embedded in street life is part of what makes these stories so compelling. Additionally, these spiritual elements help to humanize figures who are often reduced to violent stereotypes. A rapper known for savage diss tracks might also speak of fasting during Ramadan, or seeking comfort through prayer after losing a loved one. These moments reveal that behind the tough persona is a person grappling with the same existential questions as anyone else. By exploring these contradictions, the narrative gains depth and complexity, showing that spirituality in the drill scene isn't just a gimmick or a contradiction, it's a reflection of the real, multifaceted lives these artists lead. This next section examines the philosophy and spiritual perspective of a rapper who challenges traditional religious narratives. Zabibi's ideology is shaped by a lifelong habit of questioning established beliefs. From a young age, he rejected the faiths handed down to him, instead seeking knowledge that would lead to his own understanding of the world. He recalls that by the age of 8, he was already questioning the practices and doctrines surrounding him, which led to the development of his independent belief system. Central to his spiritual framework is a strong critique of Christianity, a faith he sees as having been historically imposed on his ancestors through colonization. This perspective fuels his exploration of alternative symbols and philosophies. Zabibi's body art and music are infused with these ideas, particularly through symbols like the inverted cross, often associated with anti-Christian beliefs, and the number 666. While some interpret these as marks of demonic affiliation, Zabibi insists they hold deeper, more personal meanings. For instance, he views 666 as a reference to carbon, a foundational element of life rather than a symbol of evil. His commitment to these symbols has not come without resistance. Zabibi recounts an experience when he went to get his 666 tattoo, only to find that the tattoo artist, likely a devout Christian, deliberately botched the placement. This act of quiet protest reflects the tension that often arises when spiritual beliefs diverge so starkly from mainstream norms. In a similar vein, another drill rapper, Skrilla, takes an alternative approach to spirituality by practicing Santeria, an Afro-Cuban religion deeply rooted in ancestor veneration and spiritual rituals. Unlike Zabibi, Skrilla embraces a faith tradition rather than rejecting established religion entirely. His choice highlights the diversity of spiritual paths within the drill scene, underscoring how cultural heritage and personal experience shape each artist's unique relationship with spirituality. This variety challenges the stereotype of drill as solely a vehicle for violence and revenge, showing that it also serves as a platform for complex, deeply personal explorations of faith, philosophy, and identity. Skrilla's devotion to Santeria extends beyond the music. It's a central part of his life. For him, the veneration of the Orishas, or spiritual deities, provides guidance and purpose. Rooted in Yoruba religious practices that came to the Americas through the transatlantic slave trade, Santeria represents a cultural and spiritual heritage that Skrilla fully embraces. Although the religion is often misunderstood, with its vibrant drumming ceremonies, offerings, and rituals, Skrilla sees it as a source of strength and clarity amid the chaos of his surroundings. Identifying himself as a santo, someone initiated into Santeria's deeper mysteries, Skrilla also practices palo, a spiritual tradition with roots in the Congo. Palo incorporates rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices to harness spiritual energy and establish a connection with ancestors. Skrilla openly acknowledges his participation in these rituals, including the sacrifices of animals like goats, chickens, and mice. For him, these practices are not merely symbolic, they are an integral part of his belief system and a reflection of his commitment to his faith. In Skrilla's music and personal narrative, references to spiritual warfare and offerings often appear, drawing a direct line between his religion and his day-to-day survival. He describes Santeria and Palo as more than just rituals. They are a way of life, a framework through which he interprets his experiences and protects himself against the dangers of the streets. In the unforgiving environment of drill culture, Skrilla's spirituality serves as a reminder that behind the gritty lyrics and stark realities, there exists a search for meaning, identity, and connection to something greater than oneself. In early 2024, bloodhound Lil Jeff stood out as a chilling figure in the Chicago drill scene. He wasn't just another artist trying to make a name for himself. He was known for his merciless reputation. Lil Jeff carried the weight of a dozen street stories on his shoulders, stories soaked in violence and whispered with caution throughout his neighborhood. While many drill rappers claim affiliation and project an image of toughness, Lil Jeff's notoriety was grounded in the sheer intensity of his street presence. Rumored to have been involved in at least 11 fatal incidents, his name struck fear into anyone who heard it. But what set Lil Jeff apart wasn't just his violent past, it was the surprising contradictions within his character. He was a man who blended ruthlessness with a sense of faith that few would have expected. Despite his reputation as one of the most feared enforcers in his set, he was known to carry a Jesus piece, a symbol of religious devotion that clashed sharply with his reputation. For those who knew of his exploits, this mix of faith and brutality painted a picture of a man who lived a life full of stark contradictions, someone who embraced the chaotic realities of the streets while clinging to a spiritual symbol that suggested a deeper complexity behind his hardened exterior. In a world where religion was often dismissed or ridiculed, Jeff's adherence to his Christian faith set him apart. The Jesus piece he wore wasn't just an accessory. It was a testament to his beliefs, a bold reminder of his roots, even amidst chaos. While many of his peers dismissed spirituality, some even mocking it publicly, Jeff took a different stance. His faith served as a quiet protest against the pervasive nihilism surrounding him. One memorable moment occurred when fellow rapper Lil Scoom brazenly mocked God on camera, laughing and turning faith into a punchline. Jeff made it clear he wasn't going to follow suit. Instead of engaging, he stepped back, refusing to entertain the mockery. For him, faith wasn't just about words or appearances, it was about integrity. That refusal to join in the ridicule spoke volumes about his character. "I love my life," Jeff once said, summing up his outlook despite the constant dangers of his environment. But no symbol, no belief, no conviction could completely shield him from the harsh realities of Chicago's streets. Ultimately, the life he tried to live with a cross over his heart caught up to him. Even as he clung to his faith, his story ended as so many others did in his city, serving as a stark reminder that in this world, no one was truly untouchable.